Really, it froze on me. Hi Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations, and I'm here with a YouTube Live, and I wanted to show you how to assemble some projects that I have. This is my online class for the Elfie stamp set and some Santa suit gifts. These are great little things to put into stocking stuffers or add little candies to. You know, if you're looking for something for the hairdresser or the nail lady, somebody at work, these make really cute little gifts that you can put little candies in and hand out to your friends and co-workers, etc. For this, what I have done is I have created a PDF. This is my draft. That's why the pictures are a little bit faded, because I printed it in draft format. But you will get, if you place a $40 order in my online store, you will get this 19-page PDF filled with instructions, all the measurements, everything you need to do to put these things together. So in this video, I'm just basically assembling them. If you would like to get the PDF with all the measurements and everything, all you need to do is, like I said, place a $40 order within my store using the hostess code that's on your screen there. And then I will email it out to you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move some of these things out of the way. This is the first time I've done YouTube Live, so I'm a little bit nervous. I apologize for that right off the bat. I do Facebook Live on my Facebook page quite often, but this is the first time I've done YouTube. So hopefully you will be patient with me, and as I learn this, hopefully I will get better at it. I'm trying to watch comments on my computer while I talk to you on my laptop. I'm going to get a reverb if I can't get this thing to be quiet. And of course I can't. Jeesh. Starting with it already. Aha, there we go. Thank you. So here's our card. I'm going to start out with our card base. We're just going to fold that in half. And then we've got the layers. So we've got our DSP, and then a piece of cardstock, and then I've got two pieces that I've actually cut out with the layering rectangle dies. Let me grab my stamp set here. This is a great stamp set. It is so cute. It's got these little elves and stockings. Whew. Again, very nervous. I apologize. So we're going to stamp our little elf in a stocking onto this white layer here, and then we're going to color him with some Stampin' Blends. The Stampin' Blends are by Stampin' Up. They're a, oops, wrong one. They're an alcohol marker, and so with the alcohol markers, we use Memento Black, Tuxedo Black ink. So I'll just go ahead and stamp him. Like I said, our blends come in dual sets, so what you get is a light and a dark of each color. So these are my real red. Let's also pull out shaded spruce. Yep, that's those ones. And then I'm going to need the ivory color for his skin tone, and then for his hair. And let's grab a light yellow for the little bell on the top of his hat. these do blend very easily. I usually start out with the dark, and then I kind of do an edge. And then I come in with the light, and where they overlap, I make small little circles to blend it. Now these, I work in small sections so that the ink stays wet, because as it's wet, that's the best time for it to blend. So if you're working on a large project or something that's going to have the color in multiple areas, then you're going to want to do it in sections. And of course, you want to keep your hand as comfortable as possible. So rather than tilting your hand around, we're going to tilt the paper. So you can just rotate it to where your hand is most comfortable. And go ahead and do your coloring. Of course, as an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I am here to teach and instruct you, and also give you links on how you can purchase these for your very own. So in my PDF, there will be all the, like I said, the instructions for how to do all this, the measurements, and also some links to where you can purchase all of our fabulous products. Oops, I skipped one. Probably didn't mean to do that. Is anybody out there with me? In the future, as I get used to this and know how all this works, I'll make sure to put an announcement out there and let you know when I plan on going live, so you can plan to attend. But you can also click the little bell if you're subscribed to my channel. There's a little bell that you can click on that will allow it to notify you whenever I upload a new video or whenever I go live, so that you don't miss anything. Because if you catch me when I'm live, I can comment back and answer any questions that you may have. If you catch this after the fact and I'm not live, but you still have questions, feel free to contact me either through YouTube or maybe bounce on over to my blog or Facebook page, where I can be of service to you. So I'm just going to assemble these. As you can see, the Stampin' blends come all the way through the back, and that's fine. We totally expect it to do that. So sometimes you might want to make sure that you're keeping some scrap paper underneath if you're worried that it might bleed through and get ink on the layer underneath. Those out of the way for a second, and then I wanted to do some background stamping on this one, and so I'm just gonna stamp the same color onto the cardstock. So this is Shaded Spruce cardstock and Shaded Spruce ink, and then it'll just give me like a, I don't know, a background effect. It's kind of like using designer series paper or making your own to use in the background. It makes it a little less, I don't know, boring. I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean. It gives it more interest if it's got more texture to it. And then of course I do have some designer series paper, and this is out of our new holiday catalog. I don't know if you can see, but on the back side here it's got glitter actually on the paper. It's beautiful. But we're going to use the other side because the colors match our project a little better. And I'm just adhering these with snail. Oh, hi, Michelle. You knew to click the little bell when I was coming on, huh? Thank you for giving me the inspiration to go out and do this. I'm still a little nervous, but I'm very thankful that I am on here learning. You can let me know how the quality is. It wanted me to pick like what DPI I wanted to do this in, and oops, I put that on upside down. Okay, oh, we won't worry about it. And so if it's a little blurry or if it pops in and out of focus, let me know and I can make those adjustments. Like I said, that's all part of the learning process here. For my cards, I always do the inside. To me, the card's not finished unless I've also got a little something on the inside of my card. I also sometimes will decorate the outside of the envelope or maybe line the envelope in something. What I'm doing here is I'm using my grid paper. This is something Stampin' Up! Sells, and it's got lines on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my words along the straight line on my grid paper, and then I'm going to line up the block on the grids as well. And that's going to give me the best chance at getting my stamps straight on the block. Some of you may have not purchased Stampin' Up! In a while. We do have the clear mount, or we did have the clear mount stamps, which most of you are probably familiar with. But in our latest catalog, we started to make everything what we call cling mount, and so they're sticky. So even though they're still not mounted on wood, they're going to mount on the clear blocks, they're sticky so they don't fall off. They're not so sticky that you can't get them off, but they're not going to fall off, which I find very helpful. To clean my stamps, I usually just rub off the excess ink on my scrap paper, and then I would bring in my Stampin' Scrub. This has been my favorite. I've been a stamper for a really long time, and we have had this since like the 90s. And I love it. You spray the little Stampin' Mist on one side. This would be your wet side. And then you just kind of scrub it around, and then over here on the dry side, and you're done. Easy peasy. We also have a chamois kind of thing, our Simply Chamois, which is great for using on our Stamparatus. And then we've recently come out with a stamp cleaning pad, which I am a huge fan of, because this will actually take the ink off of photopolymer stamps. So if you're one of those that doesn't like the way that our photopolymer stamps will have a tendency to stain like this, then you're going to want to make sure you pop on over to the store and you add this to your order, because this is awesome. If you use the stamp cleaning pad right away after you're done stamping, it works perfectly. I mean, I just used some stamps the other day with Lovely Lipstick. And any of you that have worked with those and don't like the staining, you'll know that any of our reds or purples have a tendency to stain. And when I used the stamp cleaning pad, they didn't. I mean, like, how awesome is that? So, like I said, there's our card. I'm not going to bore you with coloring anymore on these. You kind of get the idea. I showed you how we use the Stampin' Blends. We've got the thick end and the thin end. So you've got your brush tip and then your bullet tip. And then we've got the light and the dark. And so that's what gets us our shading. So as you can see here, you can kind of blend the colors. Using those. So we'll just go ahead and put this together, and then I'll come back later and color that in. So that's card number 1. Okay, card number 2 is also using this Elfie stamp set. And then with this one, actually I will show you a little bit of the coloring, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half and then burnish it with my bone folder. And I've got my scrap paper, my inside layer, and then my outside layers. And like I said, all the dimensions are going to be in the PDF, so that's nice and easy all laid out for you. And that PDF is free. All you have to do is place a $40 order within my store using the hostess code that's on your screen there. So when I stamp this guy, I'm going to stamp him close to the bottom, but I don't really want him exactly on the bottom. But I don't want him to look like he's floating in air either. I want to make sure that he's sitting on the ground, as well as the little packages that I'm going to put down there. And I'm going to put a third package here on my scrap paper, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out with my snips, and it's really easy to do because since it's a square, it's just all straight cuts pretty much, except the little bow on the top, and it's not too complicated. If I wasn't on camera, I'd be a little more careful, but you get the idea. But you can see how he's sitting there. He doesn't really look grounded, is the word that we used when I was taking some classes. So what I did is I used just a little bit of the light smoky slate Stampin' Blend, and just kind of colored underneath of him a little bit. And so this makes it look like he's sitting on the sidewalk. If you were to place an order from the holiday catalog, you'll notice that we do have some puff paint, and we have some crystal effects that has some glitter in it. So there's some other choices if you want to ground him a different way, but just the idea is you don't want him to look like he's floating in air. We want him to be sitting on something, be it snow or sidewalk or something. Now this, because I'm only using the one color, the light, I'm going to come back in with our color lifter, and I'm just going to go over it. And what this does is it lifts a little bit of it and it blurs the edges. And so this will make it look more natural. And then what I did is I came in and I colored the packages, and then I used a Stampin' Dimensional to pop up this other one. So you can see how that's done here. Oh, and I forgot to show you. I also used the epoxy dots. That's something that's new in our holiday catalog, is we do have epoxy dots in our annual catalog in some bright, pretty colors, but in our, because they're in Melon Mambo, or Coastal Cabana, Granny Apple Green, Gorgeous Grape. I mean, they're really pretty, but they're not exactly Christmassy, right? So for Christmas, they came out with red and green. So now we have the same pretty glittery epoxy shapes, but they're red and green for Christmas. These work great to lift off of here using our Take Your Pick tool. And you can choose to use either the little pointed end, you know, and just lift it up, or on the opposite side, there's a spatula. A lot of people are very fond of using the spatula to help lift these things off. Or you can use the little gum end. The idea is that you would set it on top of it, give it a little shove, and then it lifts it up and it sticks. So see, my little epoxy dot is stuck on my Take Your Pick tool, and then all I have to do is bring it on over to my card and set it down, and there it is. So I can do that with a couple different dots and just place them on my card. And I'm just placing them randomly. As an accountant, I'm not very good with random, but I do try, because that's part of the whole artistic part of stamping is to be kind of random and to do things in odd numbers, which is something I was taught. So there's 4. Let's do one more to make it odd. And then that would get attached to the front of our card. Oops. Let's put it on this layer first. And again, all the dimensions will be in the PDF. It's 19 pages long, giving you all the directions, the measurements, the photos, everything you need. And then here's our inside. And so I just said a holiday hello and used the little thing. You can also use the little packages in the corner. We can switch it up. Since I didn't use packages last time, we'll use them this time. And then let's see, the greeting. Here we go. And then I had the shaded spruce ink right in front of me a minute ago. There we go. Now these are our new stamp pads. Again, if you haven't ordered in a while, these are something that they changed over to probably a little over a year ago. And they open up like a compact and then they slide. Now I've had a couple people tell me they don't like them, and I just freak because they are so nice. They stack one on top of each other. They have these little feet that keep them together. They're not as clunky as our old ones, and they stack better. They're tighter. They hold the ink better. So I said, you know, what is it? What is it that you don't like about them? And the deal was they don't like the fact that they're a little bit stiff. Now, if your pads are stiff, what you want to do is you want to take a birthday candle, chapstick, something, and run it down the little grooves here. And this just kind of lubricates it. And then you just slide back and forth like this several times to move it around. And the more you use it, the easier it's going to be to open and close. So just a tip on our pads. I don't like it when people say, "Ooh, I bought something from Stampin' Up and I don't like it," because Stampin' Up has a fantastic policy of they want our customers to be happy. They want you to receive items that you like, that are well made, that you can use. And Stampin' Up and myself both stand behind that, and we want to be here to help you. So if you tell me you don't like your ink pads, let's figure out why. And if it's defective, we'll get it replaced. If it's just a matter of you didn't know that it needed to be, you know, waxed up a little bit, that's easy enough to fix. But you don't know those things unless you ask me. So make sure that you do ask me when you have questions like that, because there's an easy fix. So there is card number 2. And then I'm done with my stamp set, because all my other items are going to be the Santa suit. Now these are things that are very popular when I go to craft fairs. People love them, like I said, as stocking stuffers. They wrap candies and things in them. So these ones are an elf and a Santa that are going to wrap around a Hershey bar. And so if you have a standard size Hershey, this is what fits just right in the middle of it. Now I'm sure it could be adapted if you had a different kind of candy bar that was maybe a different size, a little thicker or something. We can always adjust the measurements and make it fit. But this is the size that will fit that candy bar. Now I've already done all the scoring. Again, those measurements are on the PDF. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to burnish all of my score lines. Everything kind of just works a little bit better if the score lines are well defined, and our bone folder does that beautifully. And so all you have to do is just kind of fold it and then run the bone folder along the edge. And so that's going to give us our nice little wrapper. Now to decorate this up to make it look like an elf, we're going to put the center of his little jacket where the fur would be. We're going to put that right down the center. We'll just adhere that with some snail. Eyeball that down the center. And then we're going to put a belt across the front. Now I always start out on these things that bend by doing just the middle first, because then when I go ahead and bend it, I want to make sure that my crease lines are going to be at the same spot as the outside, because I don't know, sometimes it's like, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch off. See how there's just like maybe an 1/8 of an inch difference, because we don't want it to, I don't know, warp or bend funny. So now that I've got it all folded to where it needs to be, now I can go ahead and I can add the rest of my snail and adhere it all the way. And then I know I'm not going to be messing up the edges as they fold over. Now for the collar, I mean, elf collars are just kind of, I don't know, ragged. And so all I did was I took my paper snips and I just snipped up and down. Again, trying to be very random, which I'm not good at. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Actually, it looks better if it's not perfect. So I'm just slicing up from the point at the bottom at an angle, and then I'm coming over here and going back up to the tip of where that is so that this just pops out. And I'm going to do that all the way across. Different angles, different heights, just making it go all the way around. And so there's my collar. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my adhesive across the middle. Line my collar. And then I'm going to just fold it on those edges. Oops, come on. Okay, so there's his collar. And now all we need is to wrap it around our candy bar. So I'll go ahead and set that in there. And then I'm going to run some snail adhesive down that, fold this over, and press. So there's our belt. This is the buckle. So this is going to go on there with snail or glue dots. I'll just place that right over the center of his belt and over the center of the gold part of his buckle and his belt. And these are glue dots. Again, they're really simple, easy to use, and work well when you're trying to adhere onto glimmer paper, because glimmer paper is more textured. So sometimes the snail isn't, I don't know, thick enough to make that work. So that's one. Now we can start on our Santa. This is going to be very similar. We're just going to decorate it a little bit differently for his suit. But we're starting off the same way by burnishing all of our little score lines. We're going to come back in and, let's see, we started down the middle. We'll do his fur trim. Let's do his belt. Adhere the center. Fold these pieces. Like I said, you could, if you wanted to, glue it on and then fold. I just find I get a better defined edge if I crease it a little bit before I attach. Might be just a personal preference thing. Okay, for his collar up at the top, Santa's suit is much different than the elf. And so for that, I'm going to use a Stampin' Up punch. I'm going to use our Pretty Label punch. And I tend to do my punches from the back side because I like to be able to see what I'm doing and make sure that it is lined up correctly, especially when I'm trying to conserve cardstock. Now I wanted to make sure that I'm not wasting too much, so I cut this kind of small. Now if it was even smaller, what I could do is I could take a Post-it note and I could just adhere the Post-it note to it, and then what that does is it gives me a handle and it allows me to move it around inside there and be able to get my best alignment without having to have a larger piece of cardstock. And then because it's Post-it, it's just going to pop right off nice and easy and it doesn't leave any residue whatsoever. But then I wanted this to be his collar, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down the center and add a little bit of snail. And put that at the top. So now we have our Santa. So again, we would just take the other candy bar and put it inside and then seal the back. So there you have your Santa and your elf candy bar. Similar to that would be the little tags. So gift tags have been very popular the last couple years. It's a way to add a little something fun that you made to a gift that you're giving someone, and give a little bit of handmade without it taking a lot of extra time, money, or supplies, but still making them feel special because you made them something. It also makes it look really cute under the tree if you can like coordinate things to match, which Stampin' Up is famous for. They match all of their stuff wonderfully. If you have not used Stampin' Up, then you need to know that everything coordinates beautifully. If you get real red cardstock, real red ink, real red re-inker, the buttons, the ribbon, everything in real red is going to match. So if I know if I run out of real red cardstock, I can order more real red and it's gonna match exactly. And then my ink will match exactly and my ribbon will match exactly. And they keep those dye lots until they retire that color. So I know I'm never gonna run out of a particular something. So I'm noticing I cut these a little bit wide, and so all I'm doing over here is I'm taking my trimmer and just trimming off that little excess that I shouldn't have on there. And like I said, this is going to be very similar. I'm going to take my little Whisper White section and I'm going to tag the top of this along the short side. Again, looking from the back to make sure that it all matches up. And then for this one, I'm going to take this piece, for the Santa suit. I want him to have the collar that we used on the candy bars, but I don't want it on both sides. I only want it on one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide it between the little blades and just hold it in. So you can see as that sits there, I'm only punching one side of this punch because I entered it from the back side. And this is a handy tip for using our punches and making them go like a little further. Sometimes if you wanted this shape, or you know, a different shape, say, and you wanted it to not be that wide, you could stick this in here, hold it down, you know, under the blades and punch it again, and you'd have a smaller label. But for that we just needed his collar, so that's for Santa. And then for the elf, we'll do the same thing. We'll take our little snips and we'll start at the bottom and go up. And then I'm going to glue these over the top. Now I could use snail, but I wanted to show you when I need a little bit of what I call wiggle room, I'm going to use liquid glue. Because the liquid glue has a great stick factor. I mean, it's going to work beautifully as glue, but it gives you a little bit of time to take and move this around. So before it like totally dries, I've got a couple seconds that I can wiggle it around and make sure that everything lines up exactly. Gosh, this is bugging me. My trimmer didn't get that quite. So, and you only need a little bit of glue. I'm just making sure I got it to all the edges. I can set it over and see what I mean. I can just wiggle it around and make sure I've got it exactly where I want it. And then I leave it alone and it'll dry like that, right where I want it to be. Then we can adhere this little part as their belt. So I'm going to put this a little bit low because I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add a few little pearls as the buttons on their shirt. Or we could have used white and done the fur trim, but I wanted these to have a little bit of extra. Now I also tend to cut things a little bit long. I will overcut before I undercut because it's always easy to snip stuff off, but you can't really glue it back on. So you'll see that I've got this a little bit too long, and so all I need to do is flip it over and from the back side take my paper snips and just snip that bit off. And so it fits exactly. Now if I had cut this a little bit too short, we may have some red showing on the edge, and that would totally bother me. But we have it all fixed now. These are going to be the tops. I'm using a little bit different ribbon. And I don't know if you're familiar with, I have in the past lots of times done where I fold through like this and then pull it through, but this ribbon is a little bit too thick for that and it didn't quite sit right. And so what I did is I'm going to fold this through, and then I'm going to take some of our metallic thread and I'm just going to tie a knot around it, holding those two pieces together. And so that makes it a little less awkward. Of course it's thread, so it's fairly thin. Makes it a little hard to work with, but the result is so worth it. Normally when I use the thread, I don't even have to tie it, because what I do is I kind of wad it up in a kind of a little curlicue and put it behind things on a card. It looks super cute. Of course, we've got his buckle. So again, if you're joining in a little bit late, these are some projects that go with a PDF that I'm offering for free. If you place a $40 order within my online store, as a way of appreciation, I will email you the 19-page PDF with all the instructions, the measurements, the photos of how everything goes together. There's another piece of linen, or the metallic thread somewhere here. I've had this metallic thread for a while. You get a lot on this little spool. So this will last you a really long time. So I've just got that through the hole once on either side, and then I'm taking and tying a knot with my metallic thread to make sure it doesn't slip out of the little hole. Come on. Okay, so there's our two, oh, here are little pearls. Okay, so this is my little pearl container, and what it is when you go to the store and they have those large packs of gum, they come in these little plastic containers, and I just thought they were great to reuse to hold all my little embellishments, and then I can set them in my drawer with the labels up and know what I'm grabbing. So how cute is that? Nice and organized. I love organized. Speaking of which, this is one of the ways I stay organized on my desk with all my adhesives. If you pop on over to my Facebook page, I have a free tutorial on how I made this. This will hold the snail, the glue dots, the tear and tape. I mean, it all just fits in here beautifully and sets on my desk, so it's all nice and organized. Love organization. I was so excited when Stampin' Up! Finally came out with a storage solution for all of their Stampin' blends and their ink pads and all that. They've been very popular. Doing this one old school, and you'll see it's not working as well as my Take Your Pick tool did. See, look how much easier that is. How cool is that? Totally worth a small investment to have such a fun tool that makes everything easy. So there's the tags. This one's done in Cherry Cobbler and this one's done in Real Red. That's the difference between those two reds. So it is still color coordinated like I promised. Let's see. Next up I have this cute little kind of a bucket. You could fill this with little candies. Maybe put them in some cellophane and set it in there. It looks like a little jumper. Okay, so here's all my little pieces for that. I'm going to take my little snips and I'm going to come in from one side, or the two sides, but just these ones. I'm not actually going to cut this way. I don't want the corner removed, I just want it snipped. And then we can continue with our burnishing. And this will be the base of our little Santa pants. And you could do this with tear and tape. I wouldn't recommend snail because this gets a lot of action. And anything that's going to be moved a lot and have, you know, kids playing with it and stuff, I tend to use tear and tape or glue because it just gives me a much better hold. And so I'm just going to hold that for a few seconds until I know I've got a good connection there. Again, I don't need much. I'm just putting a tiny bit of glue on there. Push it over and hold it. Okay, for these ones I think I will use tear and tape. So we'll just go all along the bottom of this and up one side. And then I'm going to go ahead and decorate it while I have it unattached. Is that the word I'm looking for? So I'm just going to take my glimmer paper. Again, this is something that this last couple catalogs, they have totally changed up their glimmer paper. The glue is now built into the glitter, and so, I mean, I can shove this and push it around and nothing falls off. I mean, I didn't get a lot of shed off our old glimmer paper, but there was some. There is none off of this one. This is fabulous stuff. I can work with this on my desk and not have glitter stuck in my hair for the next week. Very helpful. Okay, here we've got his belt. Stampin' Up! Products are just fabulous quality. I think that's why I've stuck with them for so long. Even when I wasn't a demonstrator, I was always a customer because to me it was just the best product on the market. Okay, so there's his pants. I'm always losing his little buckle because it's little. But I'm going to take off my backing to my tear and tape. And then I'm going to start at the back of the box because I don't want the seam to be seen. And I'm going to fold it around, making sure that it's lined up with the bottom of this little tray. I haven't given it a real good press because I want to make sure that I've got it exactly where I want it before I'm really burnishing it down to give it a good stick. See, and that's why, because I have my tear and tape is on here. Okay, so now we can get it good and stuck, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of a squeeze, just to give the top of it a little bit of bend. I don't want it to bend at the bottom. I want my bottom to stay square, but I want the top to look like pants. So I keep looking over at my computer to make sure that in case anybody's talking to me while I'm live, I can answer your questions. If you're new to my channel, you want to make sure that you subscribe and click the little bell so you will be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live. I will try to schedule them in advance so you know when it's coming. I was just a little nervous because it's my first one ever. I wanted to make sure it was working well before I had too many people out there watching. And so I'm just doing this kind of like suspenders. I'm putting it kind of together at the back, but a little bit of a crisscross, and then having it come over and hook on the front. Actually, this one had a little more of a cross in the back, but you get the idea. And then his little buckle. Here we go. Let's see, I know I cut it out. Glue. And there we go. There's our next project. we're up to the little Hershey nugget holder. All my little pieces. This is going to be this one here. Okay, so again, we're going to start out by burnishing all of our edges. And I know this takes a little bit of time, but it is so worth it, especially with boxes and things. They go together so much nicer if the folds are burnished. And when you're doing it, you're making sure that you're lined up on the edge so that they're nice and straight. Because if we line it up and then burnish it, then it stays lined up. So there's no chance of my cutting it a little wonky. Now again, these are my draft, so the pictures are not as bright as yours will be when you print it out, but I am showing you that I even give you like little directions on how everything goes together and how it's cut. So even though I'm showing it to you, it is going to be in your directions. Oh, and there was a little bit of a measurement. I was taking a little tick mark, that's why I mark it 2.5 and 6. So let's see. I love this little ruler because it's got great little 1/4 inch things. And it has a 0 in the middle, so it'll go 6 inches this way and 6 inches that way, so you can center things, but then this side goes all 12 inches across. So I'm able to make my little 6 inch and come on. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so what that's doing is it's giving me my sides. So I'm just cutting at a little bit of an angle, and then I'm going to remove this piece by just cutting along that score line. So just going to take that right out and toss it in the trash. And then we're going to snip this. So this is going to fold up and go together for us. Okay, so I'm going to start out with some tear and tape. Like I said, I want this to be good and strong. So I'm going to put this down there. And you can use the tear and tape as well. I think my directions mention using tear and tape. But I'm going to use glue because, like I said, I want my wiggle room. Now you notice I cut this at the wrong spot, but that's why we have paper snips. So I can come in and even that up. Okay, so there we go. So now we have our middle, and now all we need to do is make the little buckets on the side that are going to hold our little goodies. And so I'm going to do that by putting a little bit of adhesive on the little flaps. And then I'm going to make sure that I line it up. Again, I want it nice and square on the bottom here. I don't know if you can see that. But I want it nice and square. And then I'm going to take these ones and just put a tad bit of glue on those and fold it over. So there's one side, and now we're going to do exactly the same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to put a little bit of glue, and we're going to fold it up, making sure we are square on the bottom. Let it slip a little bit. So I get for being in a hurry on camera, right? But that's going to be okay because we're going to make sure that it is adhered with glue. And then we're going to cover that right up by wrapping his little belt around. So oh, but first we're going to put his little fur trim. Is that what this is? And it's okay, I'm leaving a little bit of room at the top because his little beard thing is going to come down and cover that up. Are you still there, Michelle? That's so cool. Okay, now I said we're going to do his beard again, or the top collar of his outfit. And for that, I'm going to use this Pretty Label punch again. But this time, what I'm going to do is score it down the middle because I want it to fold over the top. So that half is on each side. Good, I'm glad somebody likes the little projects. Thank you. Again, I want this to stick really well because I'm going to wrap this around and it's going to hold all the pockets together and keep them nice and sturdy. So I'm going to pick which side I want to be my front, and you know, sometimes there's a difference because I may have made a goof on like one side, but this time I did pretty good and there's no goof, thankfully. But I'm just going to start at one side and then wrap it around until it meets on the other side, and then I can use my buckle to cover up my little seam. I'm going over glimmer paper, so I'm going to use the glue dot. Nice thick adhesive that'll make sure it sticks really well. And then all you need to do is add your nuggets. So it'll hold 2 on either side, holding 4 nuggets. So that's our next project. Our last project is this little box that I showed at the beginning how it opens. The little belly band slides off, and then this opens this way. So let's get started on this one. You're going to grab all your little pieces. Everything is already, your directions should have told you where to cut and score, so it's all ready to assemble. It's on that free PDF that you get for ordering from my store. All you do is place that $40 order and poof, the PDF shows up in your email box. Pretty swift. Okay, so I'm making a tray. Again, this is going to be very similar to the one we did for the little bucket. I just snipped on 2 sides for a total of 4 snips. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm lined up in square and burnish. So now this one, I want my little tabs, I think, to be, let's see, I think on the outside or inside. Oh. Okay, so it's going to go this way. So yeah, I'm going to go inside. Again, we'll just take a little bit of glue. Doesn't take much. Oops, that's too much. And again, you want to play with this a little bit, make sure you're good and square. Nothing will throw a box off easier than not being square. So take your time. Give it that wiggle room with your liquid glue. And true up all those sides. Okay, so this is the inside of our box. So that's this piece right here. That part's done. Now this is what's going to be the doors that are going to fold over. Now again, in your directions, you're going to have all of the little pictures that'll show you where all the cuts are. But we're going to go ahead and do that here. And because this video is on YouTube, it'll be here for as long as you need for you to come back and watch this again and again. So if next Christmas you decide you want to make some more, and hopefully the PDF directions are enough to jog your memory that you'd know how it goes, but if you wanted to watch the video again, it's here. The magic of technology. Okay, so there's that. Now we can go ahead and do our burnishing. Again, you're going to make sure that you're trued up on the top, that all those are straight and even and matched up. And then we're going to glue these in there. So we're going to take these little flaps and we're going to give it a little bit of glue. Now if you wanted to, you could snip a little like wedge on either side. I don't know if you can see how I'm doing that, but it's just a little bit of an angle that just helps that you don't have any overhang on the edge. And again, I'm making sure I'm nice and square. Come on. more glue, square up the ends. So far we're about an hour into this. We've made 2 cards and quite a few little boxes. And I'm talking a lot, so I'm sure if you were doing this yourself, it might even go a little bit quicker. So I'm just burnishing the little folds. Now this only has 1 fold at the bend, so this will go over nice and easy. I waited until Mark got home. Some of you that are following my blog might have noticed that our little 4-month-old puppy fell down the stairs. She and the other dog were kind of playing and tumbled down the bottom of the stairs, and she broke her leg. She's a little 4-month-old, 4-pound toy poodle. And they did surgery and inserted pins and all kinds of good stuff. And now she has one of her front legs taped up to her chest, so she's kind of hobbling around on 3 legs. I wanted to make sure he could keep an eye out on her while I did this little video for you guys. Okay, so now I'm going to very carefully take a look at this, and I'm going to place it in the middle. Now it's not going to fit exact. There's going to be a little bit of room on either side, like an 1/8 of an inch maybe. And then these will fold over that way. So there's our little box. Now all we need is our cute little belly band. And so again, the measurements and the score lines are on your PDF. I'm just burnishing our little folds. Now for what our box is on the side, I increased the little measurement between here to be an 1/8 of an inch bigger, so that when it wraps around, it has a little bit of play to move in and out. And then I'm going to put his buckle on the front, but I wanted to give it a few little belt loop holes. So I'm just going to come in with a little tiny 1/8 of an inch hole punch and give it some belt loop holes. And the ones I did for the craft fair, I actually used a little pencil and drew a line so that I made sure that they were all lined up and square. So you might want to try that. But then we're able to just wrap this around. And I'm going to adhere this. Being careful that I've got the glue in the middle, so I'm not actually gluing the belt to the box. But I want to make sure my alignment is right. Give it some good firm pressure so it's good and stuck. And then we're ready to attach his buckle. And this one's a little bigger, so I'm going to give it a few more glue dots. Stick that in the center, and there we have it. There's our final project. An hour and 10 minutes total, and that's with all my blabbing. So thank you for joining me. I hope you found this video helpful. Like I said, this PDF is all-inclusive. There's 19 pages of everything that you need. All the measurements, the directions, some photo examples, and a list of everything you need to purchase or to have in your little storehouse to put all of these projects together. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you have subscribed to my channel and sign up for my newsletter over at my blog. That way you'll make sure that you are up to date on all the latest and greatest of everything that's going on with Stampin' Up! And Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me.